Hey everybody, I'm here today with Sam Kingston. Sam and I have known each other for many years, and he's here to talk about his most recent experience, which was at Mobica, an inflection-based business, which has been exited to Cognizant, a really successful result. I think it'd be fair to say, Sam, when you joined, it was a bit of a troubled venture. Would you like to expand on the story in a bit more detail?
I certainly will. Hi, Ruby. Thank you. Yes, when I joined Mobica it would be late 2020, Mobica was entering a new chapter. And it was entering a new chapter because the founders and Inflection, who were the private equity company, since bought in 2015, had not enjoyed the best of relationship. The founders had frustrated the private equity company for a long time. There was still the hangover from that exit, because the exit of the founders only occurred literally weeks before I joined. It had its own culture, it had its own, and I saw that in the management team. And then I acted quickly to really change that, because I had to show a difference. So I exited a couple of the execs straight away within a couple of weeks, and then I brought new people in, only a handful of people. I was very clear that what I had to do was take the body of the Kurt with me. These were good people it was a lions led by donkeys in the old frame. So it was all about people.
What motivated you to take on such a challenging role?
No, I had met Kath Richards, the private equity partner, when I was working for a George Soros asset in the Ukraine. And Kath and I had got on really well. And when Kath called me and said, look, there's an opportunity here, I truly believe this is a good asset, Sam. So I did a bit of DD on it. It was a very unique asset because it was operating in the embedded software space. And it was really talking to Kath, and I agreed with her that it was something that should be valuable. So she believed she had a good asset. I believed she also had a good asset.
One of the things I also want to touch upon is age prejudice, if I can. It is a topic of concern, especially with private equity-backed businesses. I think you've probably done at least 5 CEO gigs before this, some in listed companies, some in private companies. When you took on this role as CEO to lead it through the exit, there are obviously going to be biases that people have, and you need to steer your way through that. How did you navigate your way through all the stereotypes when you first took on the role?
You're touching on something that's really real. It's tangible. You can smell it, you can feel it, you see it. You see it in the way that people put a brief out to recruitment agencies, or it's there. Don't bring me anybody that's over 55. Don't bring me anybody who's not in a certain profile, or almost defining gender specific as well. And I think, though, that occurs at both ends of the spectrum, the young and the old. It's at both ends you get it. But I think if you can do the job and you bring the relevant qualification to it, why wouldn't you do it? And the older chief exec, I think what you do is you sit there, and very rarely do you get a chance to be put into the position to say, yes, you can do that. Yeah, fine, go ahead and do that. And it's normally when somebody's given up, or somebody said, yeah, it's a basket, it doesn't matter. Or it tends to be through a network of people, like I had with Kath. So that's the only time you give them that. I genuinely think it's alive and kicking in terms of age. To navigate that, it's almost like being the old adage we used to say about females. You have to be 10% or 20% better than the next candidate sitting beside you. And you have to demonstrate beyond reasonable doubt that you're the person to do that. But if you're talking to a closed mind, doesn't matter how good you are, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get the gig. You're not going to get the appointment. So I think the way you navigate that is through endorsement, is through saying, go and talk to the people that I did or I worked for and worked with. There are certain environments that if you're in there and they're toxic, in their own words, in other words, if you're working with people who don't respect you, who see you as being yesterday, don't hang around, don't wait. And I have been in those environments and stayed too long. And don't do that. It's not good for you and it's not good for the company. So don't apply age as being a qualification. Bring it forward as I'm being more reflective as an individual. I would take more thought and be more thoughtful over where and how I go forward. So I think the secret in terms of that navigation is to always show, illustrate every time I've done this, go and talk to this person. Your reference has to be credible.
No, I think that's a fair point. It is something, and I can say we do get that, you know, especially in a PE cycle, you're looking for a 5 to 7 year journey. They want somebody there that at 5 to 7 years when they exit and sell is going to be the selling CEO, whether it's going to trade or whether it's going to another PE gig. And then quite like that person to be able to have the journey and longevity to do the next cycle.
Correct.
But I think it's an interesting one because ironically, if we go back to Mobica, your age and experience, I actually think really helped because it was a fairly toxic environment. And, you know, by the end, I think by the time it sort of exit to Cognizant, the impression I got was the business was very different, as in you managed to rebuild relationships throughout the different layers within the business and fostered a positive culture. Can you give some examples of how you managed to capture that?
I think we could talk about the importance of having a very clear go-to-market. We could talk about having very good reproducible delivery processes, and it's all of that's true. So you've got to do ideal customer profiling. You've got to do all of that. You've got to bring in an SDLC and have real credence and capability. So you capture knowledge. You've got to be authentic. You've got to show, and you've got to stand back. Bringing out the theme of the previous question is you have respect and you have recognition that everybody's not the same. That there are certain people who've got certain talents and they're 60% right for what they're doing. And you have conversations on the basis of, I need to develop you or I need to move you because you're not going to be successful. And when you're older, people take that message better. You've got to be there, but you've got to demonstrate your experience. You've got to demonstrate, look, I've seen this before. And you've got to bring out those messages that are relevant to the situation. You've got to have the energy and enthusiasm that actually comes through in those conversations. You cannot sit there as a desk general. You've got to be down with the troops and you've got to talk to them to say, what you did that 50% right or 60% right, and do it again, do it this way. And the reason you say that is you say that if you did that, that would be better for you. So you bring out very practical examples. Don't bring the I into it. Don't bring first person singular. Bring it first person plural. We need to do this better. And my experience, guys, is I think this is how I would have done that, and this is why. And people take that message. And when you're older, people take that message a lot better.
Throughout the process of turning the company around, what were some of the tough decisions you had to make as CEO? And how did you ensure that these decisions were in the best interest of all the stakeholders involved?
Yeah, there are people around you in any organisation who are actually extremely dangerous, but they don't appear dangerous. They're the people who work very, very hard, who are always there. They're the last to leave and they're first in the morning and they're there. And they think they're doing a great job and they think they should be recognised for that. But often they're not doing it the right way. So in plain terms, you might be paying them $10,000 a month, but they're doing $100,000 of damage by not doing things in the right way. And you've got to call that out. So I come back to my previous examples there. You've got to call out people that are fit for purpose and not fit for purpose. That was the first thing I did, to look at it, is my middle management, not my senior management, because I brought in my senior, I brought 4 people with me, but I knew 4 people couldn't change it. It had to be the middle management community. But you have to educate that middle management community, because often they were not given the chance. It was a master-slave relationship by previous management where they were told what to do. And you've got to unleash that potential. But you can't send people off who are ill-equipped to do something. You've got to take them on a journey, and you've got to sit with them. And that takes time. It takes a lot of your time, or my time, to actually sit and to work through systematically, this is how we need to do it. And then you pass it over and you watch them do it. I know it sounds stupid, but you really have got, you're like a driving instructor. You're telling them what to do, but you do it first. You drive the car and say, watch me. Then you put them into the driver's seat and say, right, now you drive and I'm going to watch you. You should do it. And you call out what's working and what's not working early. And you also remove the, well, it's their fault. No, there's no more fault. There's no more blame. That's stopped. That's gone out. That's that toxic, well, we'd have done well if we'd got a better delivery organization, or we'd have done well if those guys in sales had sold more. No. We're in this together. Everybody sells, everybody delivers. We're one organization. We're one, you're not a family, you're one community. You're running that business. And therefore stop. Your success and my success are interdependent. Keep delivering that message. And everybody is involved in the success of the organization.
It's very interesting. I think there's probably a lot of people listening to this where that would resonate quite clearly, but they're probably not happening in practice. A large part of it is the onus is on every single person to call it out and believe it and make it happen.
But in very few organizations do you ever get that chance. Because you tend to get the other half of your question there with, how do you ensure that the different stakeholders are actually aware of what you're doing? So you've got to stand on a soapbox when you're talking to your shareholders about the balance of the employees. You've got to say, we have to give a pay rise or not. You know, one of the first things I did when I came to Mobica, I said, there's no pay rise next year, guys. Zero. Now, you imagine that went down like a lead balloon. But I said, if you stay with me, I promise you surety of employment, and I promise you that the following years will be better. But I'm under pressure here, and we're under pressure as a community, because if I don't, your jobs are not safe. So if I give you a pay rise, that's a short-term measure, which could cause you to leave this organisation in 6 or 9 months, because we can't do this. So you have to deliver messages in a very hard way, and you have to turn to the private equity company and say, we have to ensure that we reward next year in a way that is actually commensurate with 2 years of pay rise, or incentivizations that are there. So you don't say, no, this is going to continue. You got to live by your word. And therefore you got to be authentic. You've got to be real, and you've got to have a business case. You can't talk about la and live in la land. It's got to be, this is where the finances are, this is where you go, and you've got to say that to both communities. But you've got to turn to both communities in a motion that actually keeps the balance. In plain terms, it's that equilibrium. You've got to hold that equilibrium, and you've got to take tough decisions, because there are occasions where you'll say to people, I'm going to give a community a pay rise, but I'm not going to give a widespread company-wide pay rise. And you have to explain that very clearly, because if they hear it from you and not at the coffee machine, that's far better. And if the private equity company hears that what you're doing is you're giving these pay rises, they want to know, well, what is that pay rise? Why are you giving an exceptional pay rise in the middle of the year when we normally give a cycle of 1 year? Well, that's the market. We've got to stay competitive in the market. And people will listen to that if you do it in a proper business case and business orientated way. That's the only way you'll get a hearing.
Looking back at your experience, I mean, it's a fantastic result that you got, but is there anything when you reflect back on it that you would have done differently?
Oh God, yeah, of course. The first thing you realise, and I think you realise this as you go around from different jobs, nothing fails like success. You can't apply the same logic and the same approach and the same methodology for any form of turnaround of business. And I don't like the word transformation. It's too jargonized. Any business that is going through change is dependent on the culture of that business. That's you've got to take account of that. That is often said, culture trumps, strategy any day. Well, that's true. So you've got to look at the people and you've got to look at the personalities and you've got to take account of that. And you've got to deal with those communities. So I think I would absolutely be a bit harder. I was cautious about ensuring that I brought the body of the Kirk with me, that I brought everybody together. And I think if I was doing it again, it is be far more open about the true state of the business, that this business was on its trajectory down. It could have been just broken up and sold. I think if I'd said that, I think that would have frightened people. And now it's a solid, well managed, well placed business. And now in Cognizant, it's going to go even further. It will be built upon, and they will, the opportunities within their client base is immense. So people's careers will mushroom. They will go way up.
What advice, Sam, would you give other executives that are facing the age prejudice piece in their career at this moment in time?
I think the first thing I'd say is don't stay where you're not wanted. I've said it before. Don't do that. I've done that. I've stayed, and you become the focus of criticism because you're never allowed to be what you want to be and what you're capable of doing. And I've seen that firsthand and experienced that firsthand. So never again work with those people. Never again, you promise yourself, no, I will not go through that again. So that's the first point. The next point then is just stand back as if you're looking at something afresh. Really say, if I'm standing here, what would I do? What would I really do for this business? Be brave. Call upon every ounce of experience you have, but also do it in the context of the modern environment. Mm-hmm. People say, oh, well, I apply the same methodology because business is business. No, don't do that. Take account of where you are and where your business is. Apply logic, but don't apply the same logic that you've applied before, but actually do stand back and say, right, well, if I'm coming to this, almost take the view, if I'm coming as my replacement, what would I do now? Stand back and be brave. Don't live in the zone of greyness. Be brave. Don't stand back and say, well, if I do that, there's a risk. No, of course there's a risk. But stand up and be counted. Do it.
Do you think you've got braver the older you've got?
Oh yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. You're careful not to be seen as somebody who is a maverick or a renegade. As you get older, you start to think, now, wait a minute, hang on a second. What do they think I am? I've done this before. I've got a lot of experience here. I can apply that. I know that I can see where mistakes have been made.
And then what's next for you, Sam?
I want to go again. I want to demonstrate there's no such thing as luck. That what there is there's nothing but hard work and thoughtfulness. You bring the right people with you, but you're at the center of it and you drive it. And again, it's not that I want to be an advocate for older CEOs. What I want to say is make your choice, keep your energy going, keep your drive, but don't ever give up. don't ever get to the point where you think, oh, well, no, I'm going to hang my boots up. No, don't do that.
Well, I look forward to seeing where you turn up next.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, Sam. Thank you very much for your time.
As usual, I want to say thank you to you. I think one of the things that people never do is actually recognise that there are people who actually develop people's careers, like yourself, and like your colleagues, a lot of colleagues in the recruitment industry, that actually guide and never truly get that recognition for that guidance and advice. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.